Sales at pinnacleridgeestates.ca. At the NW News Desk, I'm Jordan Armstrong.
I'm Bill Good. Good morning. In the final series of our one-on-one interviews with leaders, Adrian Dix, the leader of the NDP, is in studio today, and he'll be back tomorrow for our leaders' debate. Mr. Dix, good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
I must say you changed the channel yesterday with a suggestion that you would consider selling BC Place and even the Trade and Convention Centre. I'm told it's not the first time you've raised the idea, but I think for most people it came as a surprise. Who'd buy them and why would you sell them?
Well, I think clearly the BC Place project, the retractable roof project, hasn't been a success. It was significantly over budget. We all acknowledge that. It was supposed to be supported financially by things like selling the naming rights. The Liberal government, I think a fair person would say, bungled that quite significantly. It was supposed to be paid for by an arrangement around gaming that fell through and wasn't approved by the City of Vancouver. So it's a significant problem, hundreds of millions of dollars in debt over there. Two projects that people talk about, my platform, the overruns on the project are substantially bigger than my platform in the first year. The whole platform, right? Those are the overruns the Liberals have run. So it's a serious problem. So I think there's nothing, my view is that we have to focus on the fundamentals right now. The government is involved in skills training and health and education, and those things are primarily public, and they should be overwhelmingly public, and in fact, I would argue more public. But stadium management and retractable roofs, I don't think those are fundamental to government. So I think we should consider the option of selling if it works for us, if they can run it better, if it can relieve us of some debt. I think that's a good idea. The Rogers Arena next door is run very well. We now have the Rogers Centre in Toronto, which went through a similar process, is now, after a long series of things, and the taxpayers didn't do well in that deal either.
No, it was built for nearly $600 million and sold for less than $50 million.
But what's true now is that it's operating reasonably well. Albeit it has, stronger tenants in terms of dates. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays obviously are a stronger tenant with 81 home dates and so on. So I think we should explore that because we're going to have to deal with this enormous debt load coming out of that, both at the Trade and Convention Centre and at BC Place.
But you're not going to get much back. I mean, what would you sell BC Place for?
Well, that's why you have to have a private sector review to see what you would be able to get for it, whether that's the best option. But I think that that's an option that it should absolutely be on the table. That government has to focus on what's important right now. There's not a lot of resources. The debt is growing dramatically. We got to focus on the fundamentals.
But you're critical of the BC government for wanting to sell BC Rail, for considering selling other assets in order to balance their budget. And then you come out with the idea of selling BC Place and the Trade and Convention Centre. What's the difference?
Very fundamentally different what
How?
The government's done. Well, for one thing, the government is trying this year only, to sell more assets, should I say, this and next year, than they've been able to sell, dramatically more than the last 10 years. So trying to sell assets for the sake of selling assets, to try and fix a budget problem in 1 year doesn't make sense, right? So what I've said about BC Place is, if it's the best option to sell, we haven't booked any of that. We're not spending any of that. It would only go to pay for the debt of the BC Pavilion Corporation, which is the Crown Corporation that owns BC Place. So it's entirely different to do that, to say that this is in the best interest of the province, but not to do it to try desperately in 1 year to pretend before an election that you have a balanced budget, but to do that as a business-like government that's dealing with issues that come before it.
You're talking about change, practical change, one step at a time, but what change are you actually proposing? You've promised a review of BC Place and the Trade and Convention Centre, a review of BC Ferries, a review of BC Hydro, a review of fracking in the case of LNG, a review of raw log exports, but I'm hard-pressed to think of change.
Oh, significant change, though, Bill. Very significant change.
How?
On the key issue of skills training, for example, which I've talked about for 2 years, talked about many times on this show. The hundreds of meetings I've had with business people, with people in the labor movement, talking about what the economy needs. The skills shortage is a central question. The government has cut funding for post-secondary education in its budget and cut funding for skills training. The one thing, Don Drummond, who is a conservative economist, reviewed the Ontario government. He said the one thing you don't cut is skills training. I think that's a significant thing that the BC government can do to address future prosperity is to ensure that young people today have the skills they need for the jobs of the future.
What are the jobs of the future?
Well, I think the jobs of the future are manyfold. They're film and television, they're high tech, they're forestry, they're mining, they're oil and gas, they're the whole range of jobs. I think the problem with the current government is they're fixated on one industry, the oil and gas industry, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later in the program. But let me give you an example, the forest industry. In the last 10 years, we've lost 30,000 jobs in forestry. What has that meant? It's meant that a whole generation of people hasn't been hired in forestry, right? So there's no older brothers, older sisters in the industry. Now you see many of the major forest companies, a significant portion of their workforce aging out, right? So they're facing a real productivity problem that threatens their prosperity just at a time when we hope that forest prices are going to go up. So that's a significant problem. So we have to address that. In this period, the government has in fact reduced support for post-secondary training in forestry. So we need everything from millwrights to foresters. There are huge opportunities in that for young people and communities. And we've got to get the skills training part of that right, the post-secondary part of that right. And so that's going to be a focus, not just for 1 year of an NDP government, but for as long as the NDP government's in place. And that's why I've been talking about it so long. So on our side, change for the better. That's right. Focusing on what matters, and I think skills training matters. On the Liberal side, frankly, cuts to skills training, but they're advertising about it. They've spent $16 million, and that's one of the things the Premier personally has advertised about. I think that's the change that we want to bring.
Talk about BC Ferries. The Liberals semi-privatized it, made it supposedly independent of government. Was that a bad move?
Well, I think if you look at Mr. McAtee's report on BC Ferries, which is a significant report, I think, it showed that you've seen on minor routes, I think, 80% rate increases, on major routes, 47% rate increases. He talks about families not visiting each other anymore, that they've reached a tipping point in terms of ferry fares, which is, a significant problem for a lot of communities. It's different for everyone, and it's different for people who have to take the ferry every day versus people who take it on weekends versus people who take it occasionally. But the overall impact has not been positive over that time. So what I proposed, and we have to build on Mr. McAtee's report, is that we do a comprehensive audit building on his overview of the situation, which says that, over the next few years, we have $2.5 billion in capital expenditures, which he says in his report are not supported by the evidence. That's what he says. That we need to do an audit to make sure we're going the right direction. And in the meantime, freeze ferry fares, the proposed increase next year, April 1, 2014, to address that problem.
But if you freeze fares, inevitably you're just going to have to raise them by even more.
Oh, I think we have to. I think what's happened at BC Ferries, Bill, is that we've reached a bit of a tipping point, right? I mean, 80% fare increases on routes is a very significant, has had a very significant effect on ridership.
But there's been a 300% increase in the cost of fuel.
Well, what I'm saying is that I think that we've reached a point, Bill, where there is very, very little room to be raising fares again if we're not going to see a continued downward stretch.
So are you going to dramatically increase the subsidy? Because it seems to me you have three choices: raise fares, lower them and add to the subsidy, or cut services.
Well, here's what we've done. What we've said is that we've fully costed that freeze on fares. So we've fully costed it, not just next year and the year it's taking place, but the following year. Right, so it addresses the issue of the makeup that you talked about earlier. That's what we've done. I think it's a straightforward approach, and we have to. There's no alternative in several of these cases. You talk about ferries and hydro, but hard work to make up for what I think, in some cases, particularly at BC Hydro, has been mismanagement. It's going to require hard work over a period of years. It's not a magic. There's no magic solution. The government likes to talk about magic funds. There's no magic solution to these problems. We're going to have to work through them over the next couple of years.
But after 12 years in opposition, can't you tell us what you'd do? So far, all you've told us is review, review, review. You haven't said, this is what we are going to do in terms of practical change.
Well, the first 8 days of the campaign, every day I went out and laid out a specific program for change. Liberals were critical of it. That's what their campaign is. But 8 days, every day, in detail, what we were going to do in a number of areas, right? That's what we said. And we've presented yesterday a full platform to the voters of BC that talks about our priorities. There are huge cost pressures, as you've described, but we've said these are the things, this is where we start. And that means that we haven't done a whole bunch of the things that some people want us to do that would involve a big increase in spending, because we're facing a very difficult fiscal period. And I think our plan is a good plan. So we, every day, laid out a comprehensive platform in an area on the economy, on education, on post-secondary education, on the environment, every day. And the Liberals every day of the campaign have been attacking me. Right? That's their whole campaign, is attacking me. And this is what's been going on for 18 months. And we've dealt with issues pretty seriously on our side. We haven't taken cheap shots at the government. We've taken a serious approach to being in opposition. And the Liberals run negative ads. They've been running them for 18 months, and that's the campaign they're going to run. We'll have to decide. They've got smart people running their campaign, so I assume they think they're right to just attack the NDP. Right, you know, and it's very interesting. But on our side, every day we've been laying out seriously, in detail, what we're going to do if elected.
Much more with Adrian Dix, including your calls after the top of the hour. And also a reminder that we are live streaming this at CKNW.com. Back with more with Adrian Dix, leader of the NDP, right after this. Tom Mark has our news headlines.
NDP leader Adrian Dix says his idea of selling BC Place Stadium isn't the same as selling off government assets. Homicide investigators have yet to release the name of the man gunned down outside a mall in the Morgan Creek area of Surrey last evening. A Winnipeg woman suffering from a degenerative illness and who wanted a doctor-assisted suicide gets her wish in Switzerland. And George W. Bush gets his library today. Next news when it happens. I'm Tom Mark.
This is the Bill Good Show on CKNW.
It's a beautiful
CKNW and Tawasin Springs are sending one lucky code hunter to see Michael Bublé in London, June 30th. Watch CKNW's Facebook page and listen to the CKNW Morning News for the code. Then be ready when we call for the code on the World Today. Get a bonus code at the Tawasin Springs Display Homes or Golf Course, 5099 Springs Boulevard, Tawasin. Find your beautiful day at Tawasin Springs, a whole new kind of community.
I'm feeling good.
Right now, get a quality, reliable Honda Civic DX for just $95 bi-weekly with zero down. Great news. The only problem is that you're likely in your car. For your personal safety, please refrain from in-vehicle belly bumping, backflipping, or doing that ridiculous horse riding lasso twirling dance. Just visit Kingsway Honda at Kingsway and 12th or visit kingswayhonda.ca for details.
Destination Auto Group, your journey begins here.
I really want my money to work for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I went to Prospera Credit Union. They've got a guaranteed rate of 2.10% on a 15-month non-redeemable term deposit, and you could increase your rate up to 2.35% and get entered to win 10 cash prizes of $2,500.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Go to Prospera.ca and check out those details.
With Prospera Credit Union, don't just bank, prosper. Terms and conditions apply.
You wanted more? We give you more! Hometown Heroes Lottery offers 5 exciting grand prize selections. Incredible homes in White Rock, Steveston, Vancouver, Osoyoos, Victoria, or 1.6 million cash. This year, we've doubled the prizes with over 7,000 to win. Check out heroeslottery.com and get your tickets today. Call 604-648-HERO. That's 648-HERO.
Ticket buyers must be 19 or older. Know your limit. Play within.
Hometown Heroes.
You the zookeeper?
Yes, I am.
You know, I saved a ton of money at Fountain Tire, so I'm looking for a pet.
A pet?
Yeah, I'd like to buy a giraffe.
That's impossible.
Well, money's no object. I've got $160.
Right now at Fountain Tire, save up to $160 on a set of 4 selected Goodyear tires.
The giraffe's not for sale.
Really?
This is a zoo.
Well, I'll take the narwhal.
What narwhal?
Well, the one over there with the pink snout.
Our head cashier.
You taught a narwhal to run cash?
Offer in soon. Save up to $160. Another reason to trust Fountain Tire.
You know, I'm 1/5 narwhal myself.
With a BCAA membership, you're good to see where the road takes you. You're good to get away for the weekend. Because even when there's trouble, you're good to get where you need to be this summer.
Okay, try it now.
Are we there yet?
Our BCAA-owned trucks and trained technicians get members back on the road without a tow 80% of the time. With a BCAA membership, you're good to go. At Mark's, only until Sunday, it's the Spring It On event, where we're shedding prices as you shed your winter layers. Take 30% off our regular price of all men's and women's Denver Haze and Wind River tops, including 50 wash tees and polos, never iron shirts, Curve Tech tanks, and so much more. Stock up on spring essentials and take 30% off all Denver Haze and Wind River tops. On now, only until Sunday at Mark's. Visit us in-store or on marks.com today.
Gas prices are going down. For Hyundai drivers, that is. Right now, get up to 40 cents off a liter of gas until 2014 and 0% financing for up to 84 months on select models. The Hyundai Double Savings event is on now, but only for a limited time. Details at Destination Hyundai Vancouver. They're near 12th and Kingsway or at destinationhyundai.ca.
Destination Auto Group. Your journey begins here.
The Bill Good Show on CKNW.
Talking with NDP leader Adrian Dix. One exception to the lack of specifics is the indication that you would not look kindly on Kinder Morgan expansion. And if anything, that is a change from your own position. This is what you told me on October 23rd.
My view is this, that they haven't applied yet. They've applied for some elements. They're doing preparatory work. Already they've changed the scope of the project and the preparatory work, right, that they're doing. And once they apply, we'll take a position. But there's not going to be any sweetheart deals for Kinder Morgan any more than there were for Enbridge from us. There's going to be a BC process, and we're going to make the decision in BC about that pipeline proposal. But, you know, and there's significant questions people have, particularly in Metro Vancouver, but all along the pipeline with respect to that twinning, and people will have that opportunity. But I think in principle, you've got to wait till you see what something is before you oppose it. And so that's what we're doing.
So what's changed?
I think what I said this week, I said on Earth Day, was that what we're not going to have in Metro Vancouver is an increase 8 or 9-fold in tanker traffic. We're not going to become an oil tanker export port, whether it's in Vancouver or Delta or anywhere else. That's what I said. I think people want to know where you stand on these sorts of things. We haven't seen an application, which makes Kinder Morgan different from Enbridge. It's different in two ways, it seems to me. One is we haven't seen the application yet, so that is still to come, presuming that.
But you basically
happens.
said no to it this week.
And
at least that's the perception.
And the second thing we have to do is, are they changing fundamentally what it is? And I don't agree with changing fundamentally what it is. There is a Kinder Morgan pipeline coming here. It principally serves the West Coast. There's been some increase in oil tanker traffic, but an 8 or 9-fold increase is and transforming Vancouver into a major oil tanker port is something I disagree with. And I thought it would be useful in the election campaign to say that clearly so that people understood where I stood.
But on October 23rd, you said it would be a principled decision made after an application and review.
Well, I said what I was saying in principle is, and this continues to be the case, we don't have an application yet, in fairness to Kinder Morgan, although they've given an indication since I gave that interview on January 10th, they dramatically increased their proposal to, I think, 890,000 barrels per day or something like that for the whole project. And, you know, I think that, in my view, the project is inconsistent with our vision for Vancouver and for Metro Vancouver. And I think most people agree that turning Vancouver, with all the dangers to our coast, into a major oil tanker export port isn't the right thing to do. So I decided, I think, and I very, very strongly believe it was the right thing to do.
We've had tankers going through this port for the last 60 years. What really is the difference between having one tanker and 3 on a given day?
One tanker and 9, I think, is a significant difference. It raises the risk considerably. I mean, that pipeline currently serves, obviously, the Chevron refinery, which is a relatively small refinery. It obviously serves interests up and down the West Coast. But this would fundamentally change what it is. Essentially, what the proposal is would be to change the Kinder Morgan pipeline into a tanker export pipeline, and I don't think that that's the best thing for British Columbia. That's my view. We'll see what the proposal is when they come out with it, but I strongly think that, and I thought that it was useful to let people know before the election what I thought about that, because that's the vision for what Metro Vancouver would be, just as Enbridge Northern Gateway, in our view on that, is the vision for the North Coast.
Healthcare. You were a very effective healthcare critic. But what did you learn, and what would you change?
Oh, I think you see this in the specific and detailed plans we put forward for healthcare. It wasn't a bunch of big-ticket items. We focused on what the real problems are. I think in healthcare, one of the key problems is a lack of home care and home support. It puts pressure on the complex care system and on the acute care system. One of the problems we have in acute care hospitals is we have across the province, in some cases, more than 20% of the beds filled by people that shouldn't be there. And home care and home support is the most efficient way to do that, and it gives seniors options. In this day and age, when you turn 65, your life expectancy is significant. It might be 25 years from that point, which is different. There's, we talk about seniors as one group, but really they're not. It's a very diverse group. And seniors have today, when they engage with the healthcare system, very relatively few options. And so I believe a focus on home care and home support is the right approach. And I share some of this approach, focus on primary care, with the people I debated with. We had very significant debates with George Abbott when he was Minister of Health. And some of these things I think he would strongly agree with as well, that the pressure on acute care means all of the things that you can do to save money in acute care and are less expensive get pushed off the agenda and not invested in. I have type 1 diabetes, Bill, and so if I would have an incident, and I'm very hopeful I don't, that would require me to go to St. Paul's here, I would get outstanding care. There's no question, right, in terms of emergency care at that hospital or at VGH. But all of the things that people with chronic disease need to avoid the serious incident related to their chronic disease, those things are not available in the system as much as they should be. So we've got to focus on efficient investments to address that. There's a final problem, which is that the Liberal budget in this year is a mystical budget. They're proposing $100 million in cuts to MSP based on what they said last year, which is significant, and they haven't any plan for it. So we're going to see cuts in healthcare should the Liberals come in and actually implement that budget.
Much more with Adrian Dix, including your calls when we come back after the news. 604-280-9898.
Right now, get a quality, reliable Honda Civic DX for just $95 bi-weekly with zero down. Great news. The only problem is that you're likely in your car. For your personal safety, please refrain from in-vehicle belly bumping, backflipping, or doing that ridiculous horse riding lasso twirling dance. Just visit Kingsway Honda at Kingsway and 12th or visit kingswayhonda.ca for details.
Destination Auto Group. Your journey begins here.
The best time to lay down your new lush green lawn? Right now. So order your turf right now from Anderson Sod Farm. Anderson's selection of grasses has never been better, and Anderson's spring specials are crazy good. So roll out the green and save some green during peak turf season at Anderson Sod Farm, where BC's finest lawns begin. Your new lush green lawn is an easy phone call away. Find out more at andersonsod.com. That's andersonsod.com.
Hey, this is Jen from the Canadian Direct Insurance Customer Service Center, reminding you that when it comes to getting optional auto insurance, you have choices. Choose Canadian Direct Insurance and you could save big. Why pay more when we could get you the same coverage for cheaper? And not to brag or anything, but did I mention we have award-winning customer service? So call me. Just dial 1-888-CALL-CDI and say yes to savings with Canadian Direct Insurance. Member Canadian Western Bank Group.
Gas prices are going down. For Hyundai drivers, that is. Right now, get up to 40 cents off a liter of gas until 2014 and 0% financing for up to 84 months on select models. The Hyundai Double Savings event is on now, but only for a limited time. Details at Destination Hyundai Vancouver. They're near 12th and Kingsway or at destinationhyundai.ca.
Destination Auto Group. Your journey begins here.
It's 9 o'clock. Live from BC's news leader,
This is the Bill Good Show on CKNW News Talk 980.
It's 12 degrees in the sunshine. Much more with NDP leader Adrian Dix just ahead. But first to the NW News Desk and Tom Mark.
And the NDP leader is defending his proposal to possibly sell BC Place and the Vancouver Trade and Convention Centre. After criticizing the government for the sale of assets to balance the budget, Adrian Dix says possibly selling BC Place is not at all the same.
So trying to sell assets for the sake of selling assets to try and fix a budget problem in 1 year doesn't make sense. So what I've said about BC Place is, if it's the best option to sell, we haven't booked any of that. We're not spending any of that. It would only go to pay for the debt of the BC Pavilion Corporation, which is the Crown Corporation that owns BC Place. So it's entirely different.
Speaking with CKNW's Bill Good, Dix said the Liberals are pretending to balance the budget by using anticipated revenues from the sale of assets. He says his proposal is about the government, quote, doing its business. The members of the Dunbar Community Centre Association have passed a motion changing how any new master agreement with the Vancouver Park Board is accepted. Dunbar Theatre owner Ken Charco tabled the motion requiring members of the association to ratify any new deal struck by the board.
The board does not have the authority to sign on to the agreement and then come and consult with the membership. The board has the authority to approve in principle, to recommend to the membership for approval.
Charco says Dunbar may be the first, but other community centre associations will likely follow suit.
The people that use the association should have input into it. So I think other associations are also going to start to go forward with that model as well.
Some community centre associations are holding out as talks continue with the Park Board over a new revenue-sharing model. CKNW News Time is 9:02. One man is dead and a community shaken as police search for the perpetrators of what may be a gang-related shooting in a busy Surrey parking lot early Wednesday evening. The shots rang out just before 7 in the retail and residential complex at the 15300 block of 24th Avenue. Police found a man with a number of gunshot wounds near a car in front of the entrance to the Steve Nash Gym. A man living in a building off that lot says he is stunned by how close he and his 13-year-old son came to being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
I can't believe it. We just my son and I had just done our grocery shopping and walked across and just entered the building and then pop.
Gordon Fletcher adds another residential building nearby has had ongoing problems with drugs and prostitution. A Canadian woman has died at a clinic in Zurich after traveling to Switzerland for help to end her life. 72-year-old Susan Griffiths chose to travel to a European clinic for a doctor-assisted suicide before a degenerative disorder could overwhelm her body completely. A family friend says she died peacefully this morning. Griffiths said in one of her final messages she wasn't afraid, but wished she could have died in Canada. All the living American presidents, past and present, are gathering in Dallas, a rare reunion to salute one of their own at the dedication of the George W. Bush Presidential Center.
Visitors to the $250 million library and museum will see artifacts from the Bush years, especially reminders of the worst day, 9/11.
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The bullhorn that George W. Bush used at Ground Zero is part of the 9/11 exhibit, along with a twisted beam from the World Trade Center. Peter Mayer, CBS News, Dallas.
CKNW News Time is 9:04. With all-day traffic, here's Jennifer Thompson.
And dealing with an accident at the Massey Tunnel. It is southbound in the only southbound lane. They decided to pull the counterflow a couple of minutes to let those of you southbound get through. It is busy and backed up between Blundell and Steveston, and also busy eastbound on Steveston backing up towards Shell. There's also an accident in Burnaby westbound on Canada Way at Willingdon. Traffic brought to you by Fountain Tire. Right now, save up to $160 on a set of 4 selected Goodyear tires. Another reason to trust Fountain Tire. I'm Jennifer Thompson with traffic on CKNW News Talk 980. For instant traffic updates, go to AM 730. All traffic, all the time.
CKNW Traffic.
For Auto West Infinity, Vancouver's exclusive and premium Infinity Sales and Service Center, located in the Richmond Auto Mall. Visit AutoWestInfinity.ca.
CKNW Business News. Burger King has sold its Canadian subsidiary, including 94 company-owned restaurants. The buyer is Quebec-based Redberry Investments. On the markets, the Dow is up 68 points, TSX up 54, the Canadian dollar at 98.07 U.S., up just under 0.6 cents. Mark Madriga's weather is next.
Jan Leszecki, the young pianist from Calgary, returns with his new recording, Chopin's Etude. Jan's ascent to the top of this Mount Everest of virtuosity is attained with equal measures of insight and bravura. Playing that crackles with a burning technique. Artistry that caresses the soul. Jan Leszecki. Chopin's HU, revolutionary. Available in-store or online wherever you buy your music.
Now with his forecast for Pinnacle Ridge Estates, here's Mark Madriga.
Well, good morning. There is rain on the way without a doubt and cooler air. Most of the rain will fall Saturday, and then we'll have at least a few leftover showers on Sunday. Today, though, sun and cloud in the mix, 50-50. Highs of 15 to 19. Cloudy and cooler tomorrow with highs of 14.
Right now, it's 8 in the Valley, 7 in Whistler. Outside Pacific Center, it's 12 degrees. CKNW weather for your chance to own an acre of paradise. Join CKNW at the Pinnacle Ridge Estates grand opening this Saturday. Details at pinnacleridgeestates.ca. This is BC's news leader, CKNW News Talk 980. CKNW News Time is 9:06. I'm Tom Mark.
I'm Bill Good with NDP leader Adrian Dix in studio, and we will go straight to your calls. Please try to keep your calls or your questions reasonably terse and to the point. Owen, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Look, Mr. Dix, Premier Clark has said that she's got balanced budgets. I don't believe that, and I'm sure a lot of people don't believe that. It's full of baloney. But you have proposed thus far, I think it's $2-point-something billion in incremental spending. I, for one, would really like to know where you're going to get that extra cash.
Good question.
Owen, the Thursday before the election, we said specifically how we were going to pay for things. So before the election, before we made our campaign commitments, we said, here are the taxes we're going to raise. So let's be straightforward about what they are. We're going to increase the big business tax rate to 12%. That leaves in place a big cut from 2001 to 2008. It's 2008 levels. The Liberals, of course, are increasing that as well permanently, contrary to what the Premier said on your show a couple of days ago. We're also going to increase and reinstate a minimum tax on the big banks, which had been in place from the 1970s through to 2008 as well. And we're going to not raise income tax on anyone under $150,000 a year. So no income tax rates increases for 98% of taxpayers. We are going to increase income tax rates above the $150,000 level. And finally, we're going to ensure that the oil and gas industry and its venting pays the carbon tax just like everybody else does. So those are the tax changes, and everything we proposed in our platform is paid for by those. So we understand that the Liberals have left us a big deficit. There's no question about that, and a growing debt. And so our principle in this process was to say everything we propose, we say what we're going to do, and we say we're going to pay for it.
And you're going to run deficits for the next 4 years.
Well, that's the deficit we're inheriting. No, we proposed a 3-year plan, and we're going to reduce the deficit over that period. But look, it's a significant problem that we're inheriting, including, as we discussed earlier, at BC Hydro, where, frankly, the government has increased what are called deferral accounts. Well, it's paying itself money. And that's a serious problem. And so we have to get into BC Hydro, reestablish a management model at BC Hydro, because since Mr. Cobb left BC Hydro, it seems to me the corporation has been primarily run out of a cabinet minister's office in that period. We have to reestablish management at BC Hydro, reinstate, because this is what we specifically proposed, the role of the BC Utilities Commission in managing BC Hydro. I'm a strong supporter of BC Hydro, but any monopoly, public or private, requires regulation. And every time the government wanted to do something in the last 10 years, whether it's smart meters or private power, they exempted themselves at key moments from regulation.
But would you continue to take money from BC Hydro and ICBC?
Well, yeah, the answer is yes. In the case of ICBC, they are providing, it's not, I think, it's a responsible thing if ICBC makes a profit to ensure that that money goes to pay for health and education rather than having tax increases pay for it. I think that's a responsible thing. But the money has to be there. And the problem at BC Hydro is that we're going to lose over the next few years because of decisions made by the Liberal government that are largely exempted from regulatory review, more than $1 billion on power we don't need that's really expensive. So it's a serious problem at BC Hydro. We're going to have to get in there and deal with it. And this is one of the reasons why I've been so cautious in our platform, why we haven't gone for massive new spending programs. This is the smallest platform the NDP has presented in the last 3 elections, and smaller than the platform presented by the Liberal government on the fiscal side in 2001, the Liberal opposition. And for this very reason, these are difficult times and we have to be prudent.
John, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Good morning, Mr. Dix. In regards to pipeline construction and oil export out of BC ports, Mr. Dix, would you be willing to consent to a public vote on this issue because of the ramifications it would have for the billions of dollars of lost revenue for construction and the issue impacting on Alberta and federal government? That maybe a referendum on this would settle once and for all how many people in this province actually have an issue with pipelines and tanker traffic?
Oh, look, Enbridge Northern Gateway has had an extensive regulatory hearing, Bill. I think it's fair to say that the overwhelming voice of British Columbia, of people participating in those hearings, was against Enbridge Northern Gateway. Overwhelming. It isn't even close, especially in the north.
Not so in Kinder Morgan.
Well, we haven't had the hearings yet, of course, so we don't know that, although I think that there's also, I would be very surprised if people in Metro Vancouver were supportive of an 8 or 9 fold increase in oil tankers out of Metro Vancouver. But here's what I'd say about the Enbridge Northern Gateway process. I mean, look, I don't think Enbridge Northern Gateway is in our economic or environmental interests. The Haisla First Nation, which is pro-economic development, as I am pro-economic development, that voted 87% in a referendum there in favor of LNG. So they're not against economic development. They're in favor of it. But they're strongly opposed to Enbridge Northern Gateway because they see it undermining our economic interests. We're having a debate here about what the national interest is. Some people are trying to frame this as BC against the national interest. Well, it's been the national interest for decades to have a moratorium on oil tanker traffic on the North Coast. And so that's the debate about what it is.
Would you put Kinder Morgan to a referendum? That was the question the caller was asking.
I think the answer is no. I think we wouldn't put it to a referendum. I think we would, but because it's my strong view that it doesn't make sense for Metro Vancouver to see a massive increase like that. We would have, and we would make the decision in BC because I think BC has strong views on these questions. Remember, what the Liberal government has done is given over the decision-making power to Ottawa. They've signed an agreement that says whatever Ottawa decides is our decision in terms of assessing this project. I think that British Columbians have a strong view and that the government of British Columbia should express that view. They had other alternatives, the government did. They chose to hand over responsibility.
Seniors care. You're committed to spending more money on seniors care, but how? And how committed are you to returning more seniors care to public care facilities?
Oh, I think I focused on that first, which is I think the key priority in seniors care is to ensure that we have adequate levels of home care and home support. I don't know of anybody who wants to go in to a care home when they can live at home. Generally speaking, people want to be at home as long as possible, and that's less expensive for the healthcare system and better for all concerned, better for health, better for the quality of life, right? Because as a poet once said, to breathe is as if to breathe is life. It's more than that, and so that's what we want to have. We want to have options for seniors. With respect to seniors' care, what we've said in our plan, which is fully costed, we said how we were going to pay for this, was that we needed to raise the level and the standard of care in care homes across BC. That was a priority. I think people don't know this, that the standard is 1 bath a week in our care home. That's the standard. And that's not how we live our lives, but that's the standard. And often when there's challenges, fiscal challenges in care home, we saw that in some of the reports, for example, on Beacon Hill Villa and other care homes, that's the first thing that goes. So you have people in care homes going without baths for a very long period of time sometimes, and that's a problem. So we think that should change, that we need to improve that standard and the quality of care in care homes, and that means trying and targeting going from 1 to 2 baths a week in the first 4 years.
Does it mean more public care and less private?
I think there's a number of things going on. I think one of the things that isn't, I think that's the wrong dichotomy in terms of care homes, because remember, care homes have always been a mixed system. Right? We've never had 100% care homes and everything else. There's always been a big private role and a big nonprofit role.
And some of those private ones are nonprofit.
Yes, that's right. So there's really 3 sectors: public, nonprofit, and private. And what's happened in the last 10 years, I'd argue, is we've seen a decline in the nonprofit sector at the expense of the private. So I think we have to look at the nonprofit sector. And many of the best care homes, but they come from a different time, right? older care homes are nonprofit care homes. So I do think that we have to look to support that part of the private sector, because I think it's useful for the private sector to have the nonprofits there. And many of those care homes, I visited dozens and dozens of care homes as health critic. Many of those nonprofit care homes, which are, as you say, private, but they're nonprofit, often run by church and community groups, are the best care homes in British Columbia.
Back with more of your calls to Adrian Dix right after this. Leslie, please stay on the line. Jordan Armstrong has our news headlines.
iHit is on the case of a shooting in Surrey last evening. A 28-year-old man was gunned down in the parking lot of the Morgan Crossing strip mall in what is believed to have been a gang hit. The Harper government is supporting a private member's bill that would keep some killers behind bars for up to 40 years before they become eligible for parole. And a former Montreal mayor takes the stand at Quebec's corruption inquiry. Next news, when it happens, I'm Jordan Armstrong.
The Bill Good Show on CKNW.
Right now, get a quality, reliable Honda Civic DX for just $95 bi-weekly with $0 down. Great news. The only problem is that you're likely in your car. For your personal safety, please refrain from in-vehicle belly bumping, backflipping, or doing that ridiculous horse-riding lasso twirling dance. Just visit Kingsway Honda at Kingsway and 12th or visit kingswayhonda.ca for details.
Destination Auto Group. Your journey begins here.
Cruise the St. Lawrence River, tour French Canada, explore Nova Scotia, tour New York City, and visit New England during the autumn color season, all on YMT Vacations' latest cruise and tour. Join other CKNW listeners on a 15-day holiday departing September 30th. Enjoy a 7-day freestyle cruise aboard the luxurious NCL Dawn. Ports include Montreal, Quebec City, Corner Brook, Newfoundland, Sydney and Halifax, Nova Scotia, St. John, New Brunswick, and Bar Harbor, Maine. Your 7-day land tour includes French Canada, Vermont, Boston, Cape Cod, Newport, Rhode Island, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the Big Apple, New York City. Prices for CKNW listeners start at only $2,788 US, and that includes taxes and airfare from Vancouver. For all the details, call YMT at 1-800-736-7300. Space is limited, so call today. 1-800-736-7300.
Cloverdale Paint offers a no-hassle guarantee. And what's better than that? Cloverdale Paint says that if I'm not happy, they'd return my money, no hassles. I just bought my paint at Cloverdale Paint, and with what I saved compared to the expensive designer brand I used to use, I stopped in to see this movie.
My sadness is making me sadder.
Oh, it's a stinker. It's too bad this movie doesn't have a no-hassle guarantee. Shh.
We love what you're doing, Cloverdale Paint.
Hi, I'm Kate. Last week, my Good Wrench technician showed me how to check my tire tread depth. So when my dad's tires looked a little worn, I hopped into action. I told Dad about the 30-day tire price match guarantee, and he got brand name all-season tires installed by GM-trained technicians for the best deal in town. Nobody knows GM vehicles like the folks at Good Wrench. Dad can get going with more peace of mind, and I just passed Lynn as the favorite daughter. See participating Good Wrench service dealers for details.
As a homeowner, you have built up equity value in your home. With Capital Direct, equity equals flexibility for homeowners. Flexibility to finance your business, flexibility to renovate your home, or flexibility to pay off other things like property taxes. Call Capital Direct at 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL.
Capital Direct.
.ca. 96% of existing Capital Direct's clients surveyed would recommend Capital Direct to family, friends, or colleagues.
Oh, sorry about that. Whoa, you look like me. I'm Miles. My name's Miles, too. Double miles, just like the Aeroplan Double Miles event at Esso stations. It's amazing, isn't it? You earn double Aeroplan miles on all eligible purchases and gas. Yes, I know. I'm actually headed there right now. I just filled up. Well, go on, man. Get your double miles. Remember, 2 miles are better than 1.
The Double Miles event is back at Esso stations. Simply swipe your Aeroplan card at the pump or in-store and earn 2 times miles on regular, 4 times miles on extra, and 6 times miles on supreme grades of gas. Offer ends May 27th.
Gas prices are going down. For Hyundai drivers, that is. Right now, get up to 40 cents off a liter of gas until 2014 and 0% financing for up to 84 months on select models. The Hyundai Double Savings Event is on now, but only for a limited time. Details at Destination Hyundai Vancouver. They're near 12th and Kingsway or at destinationhyundai.ca.
Destination Auto Group. Your journey begins here.
You're listening to The Bill Good Show on CKNW News Talk 980.
And I welcome your calls to NDP leader Adrian Dix, 604-280-9898. Leslie, good morning.
Good morning, Adrian. I have a couple of points I'd like to ask you. I'm a senior. First of all, I'm a senior and I'm living just above poverty level. And with your platform, you're going to be increasing the taxes to the corporate 12%, financial institutions 3%, credit unions 1%, on and on and on. This is going to affect my taxes irregardless of you saying it's not going to go up. Okay? That's one point. Second, why are you slamming the door shut on the resources that corporates want to invest in this province? That's not good for the economy. Thirdly, you're talking about care for seniors. One of the best things you can do, HEU flooded the care facilities with care aides. They have very little to next to no skills. And it's very sad to see a person that has not had mouth care or groin care. Comments, please.
Well, first of all, just to talk about the economy, we want investment in British Columbia. We think, I think it's very important that we have investment. And that's why I've met with business people hundreds of times, why our plan leaves in place tax cuts from 2001 to 2008. We have to be competitive on taxation, and we will be with this plan. But we also have to pay for things. And it's important to address these issues of the skills shortage now, which are priorities for business and everyone else. So that's what Change for the Better is about. It's, in my view, it's saying before you are going to announce something, here's how you pay for it. And you have to ensure that it doesn't affect the basic competitiveness of the economy. Now, when I said that I was going to raise corporate taxes to 12%, the Liberal Party, you will recall, because they did it on the airways of CKNW, went a little bit crazy. And then they followed me on that path, right? So I think I was on the right track. It's a moderate, serious approach. To say that the banks have to pay a minimum tax reflects that as well. I think this has been the policy in BC for a long time. Since the government cut taxes to the banks, what happened? We actually lost banking jobs in BC and they gained them in Ontario. So it didn't have the effect that was proposed. We think that this is a reasonable approach to deal with things. So I think it's important to pay for things. On resource industries, we want investment in British Columbia. And
how would you grow jobs in the forest industry?
Well, by the kind of plan we put together, because we have an opportunity now. We see forest prices coming back in the United States. So we dropped to 420,000 housing starts in 2011 from a previous high. I think it was in the range of 1.6 million. Right? So that was huge for our industry. It's coming back now. So it's 735,000 this year, 835,000 next year, over 1 million the following year. That's what's being projected in terms of housing starts. What that means is that prices are going to go up. But we have a real challenge, Bill, in the interior because we've harvested a lot of the wood now. We've harvested a lot of the trees, and the pine beetle has had a real impact. So here's what we've said. We're going to reinvest in the inventory so that we understand and we make decisions on land use that are of value, that we focus on skills training, because that's the issue that the forest industry has said government should focus on, that we increase silviculture, reforestation, we plant more trees, because we have to make sure the next generation has a prosperous industry, right? And that we work to reduce raw log exports with the industry, consistent with our international obligations. That's a pretty serious plan. I developed it with the industry. I met with the industry, met with the unions, met with the communities. And what we've done in this plan, I think, is said that we've got a long-term vision for forestry, and here it is. You contrast that with what the Liberals did. One sentence in the throne speech on the forest industry. It's like they've given up, and I think that's the wrong approach.
Nicole, good morning.
Oh, hi, Bill. So my name's Nicole, and I'm a working mother. I've got 2 very young children. I'm struggling to pay for aging parents, making ends meet, and the $1,200 savings for my kids' education really means a lot to me. And I understand, Adrian, your plan is to take that away, and I'm wondering why.
Well, we're not going to take it away. I heard Rich Coleman and the Liberals, their advertising and the Chinese media now attacking me. We're going to use that money to support parents in just your circumstances, Nicole, with early learning and childcare. That's our plan, to use that fund for that purpose. In addition, we are reducing the cost for infant toddler care by 20%, right, which is a significant benefit.
So you're basically redirecting the money.
In that case, and we're focusing, I think, in terms of the success of children, and all of the work of Clyde Hertzman, the late Clyde Hertzman, says that we have to focus on the early years as well. And so what we're doing is we're saying that that should be the priority, is supporting people in Nicole's position. And, you know, the Liberal plan, which was a long time ago, they've changed it now, and they're using it to campaign on in this election, isn't, in my view, the right way to go. You've got to make tough decisions, right? And so I've said that here are the priorities for young people. We've established a BC family bonus to address child poverty. No big box social programs, right? Focusing the money on directly helping families. That's one. Two, directly assisting especially single women, but also families, in getting child care. That's two. Three, focusing on early learning. And four, improving education in our classrooms. Almost all of our initiatives, the bulk of our initiatives, focus on children and people in just Nicole's position. And we can have a debate on what the best policy is, but I think the name-calling from the Liberal Party, which is all they ever do, all they're doing in this campaign, is not the right approach. I haven't done that in kind. In this show, compare this transcript to the Premier on Tuesday and the attacks that he was making. We're focused on change for the better. And I think 4 more years of Liberal government, that's more of the same.
Chris, good morning.
Yeah, Bill. Adrian, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. I am going to vote for you as long as you do keep the middle of the road until the next election. But the thing I'm wondering about is some of these deals that they've signed with BC Hydro and these run-of-the-river deals, like, are you going to be looking at some of the contracts and maybe looking at, like the Liberals wiped out some of the healthcare contracts because they were so-called signed by...
Yeah, and how did that go over with the courts?
Yeah, you know, so I'm just curious to know if you're going to be looking at that, and also that $30 million uranium mine that was somehow boggled.
The bus power thing. Well, here's what I say is BC only has one government at a time, right? And that when a previous government, we don't have a Liberal government or an NDP government or a Conservative Green government. We have one government at a time. And so if contracts are signed in good faith...
You're not going to break contracts.
We can't break contracts. We are, and this is, we talked about reviews, but this is the only thing you can do. We're going to look at all of those power contracts because some of them are very unfavorable. They're bad business deals for the taxpayer. We're going to look at all of them. But you have to act responsibly. And so when we talk about reviewing that, we don't see all of those contracts. We have to go in and assess them and address them. What we're going to do, though, specifically, is we're going to reinstate the responsibility of management of BC Hydro. We're going to reinstate the BC Utilities Commission. We are going to review all those contracts, and we're going to allow BC Hydro to get back in the power business, which has been very successful for British Columbia over decades.
BC Rail, it's been an issue for many for a long time. You've promised an inquiry. What would you see as the scope of that inquiry, the sale itself, or the financing of the defendants following a guilty plea? And this time I do need a 45-second...
Yeah, I need. Well, this will be a test for tomorrow, Bill, because I think we have to focus on both. I think it's important that a review take place because there are so many unanswered questions. But I do think, and that's why we're going to put strict financial parameters around it, that this is not the only priority we're facing. We've got everything we do as a government has to be tested against the limited financial resources and the difficult situation we'll be inheriting from the Liberal government. So we need to review the sale because it has real implications, particularly for communities in the interior, review what happened, and review the issues around the trial as well.
And you'll be back in 23 hours.
23 hours, looking forward to it.
Tomorrow morning, 8:30 till 10, the leaders' debate on CKNW. News next.
Right now, get a quality, reliable Honda Civic DX for just $95.